We were working in the Dawson Tunnel, following a promising gold vein, when I noticed Schmidt digging in a side tunnel instead of at the end. Curious, I asked what he was doing. His thick Dutch accent made it hard to understand, but he insisted, "Something in here." I thought he was crazy. There was no sign of a gold vein. Schmidt had a reputation as a brawler from his railroad days, so I decided it wasn't worth arguing and returned to my work. When I headed out for lunch, I walked by and saw him still there, now digging with the fervor of a locomotive. I thought he might pass out from exhaustion, but he just kept going. Suddenly, he paused, looking excited. "It's in there. It's calling to me." His certainty was unsettling, but I figured I'd help him for a bit. As we dug, the dirt became dark and shiny, almost like coal, but I knew it wasn't. Then, Schmidt swung his pick and broke through a hole about a foot wide. A powerful wind rushed through, yanking my hat off. Instead of blowing out, it was sucking air into the tunnel, producing an eerie sound like a distorted lion's roar. Schmidt's eyes lit up, and he started laughing, convinced this proved he was right. I remained skeptical, but there was a strange feeling creeping over me, a sense that something was indeed down there, something that pulled at our curiosity. We widened the hole, revealing a cave with no visible entrance to the outside. It was puzzling. How could there be wind in a pocket? The walls were pitch black, not just dirt but rock, that seemed to ooze a thick, black substance like oil. The chamber was about the size of a small cabin, and as the dust settled, we noticed an orange glow emanating from a hole in the floor, like a volcanic vent. I knew there weren't any volcanoes in the area, but I felt a growing sense of dread. Schmidt, wild-eyed with excitement, approached the glowing pit. Steam wafted up, and the sides of the hole looked like tar, dripping ominously. From the depths came a low, growling noise, unlike anything I'd ever heard. Just then, young Jimmy came running up behind us and peered into the pit. "What the hell is this?" Schmidt was leaning over the edge, and Jimmy joined him, but I stayed back, wary. Jimmy couldn't resist touching the slick edge. "Get a rope. I'm going down," Schmidt exclaimed. "Are you crazy? We need to tell the boss about this," I protested. The mist thickened, reeking of something foul, when suddenly Schmidt lost his footing and fell in. He grasped at the sides, but they were too slick. Jimmy grabbed his hand, and we both pulled with all our might. That's when I noticed them, creatures climbing up the walls. They looked like hairless mountain lions, but with horns and enormous claws, their red eyes glaring with a terrifying hunger. Their goopy claws sank into Schmidt's legs. Schmidt was being dragged down, stronger than both of us. The tar-like substance on his hand stuck to Jimmy's arm. "Get me out," he cried. But the creatures were relentless, yanking him further into the pit. I shouted to let go, but they tightened their grip. With one final pull, Schmidt was torn from Jimmy's grasp, leaving a gash on his arm as he vanished into the orange mist. It felt like the earth itself was trying to pull Jimmy down, too. Other creatures were emerging, but I couldn't focus on that. I had to save Jimmy. With a desperate effort, I pulled him up, and he screamed as I dragged him to safety. We scrambled back toward the mine tunnel. In a panic, I grabbed sticks of TNT and hurled them into the pit, where the creatures had begun to climb through. I knew I had to ignite them quickly. My hands trembled as I fumbled for matches. I lit the last stick and tossed it inside. The explosion was deafening. Rubble and smoke filled the air. We stumbled up the tunnel. Jimmy's arm draped over my shoulder as we tried to half-walk, half-crawl our way out. But soon we realized we were heading the wrong way, into a dead end. We had to backtrack, and as we did, I caught sight of one of the creatures watching us. We threw rocks and a barrel at it. The creature stared at us disdainfully, and in a moment of instinct, I grabbed a lantern. When it swiped at me, I threw the lantern at the beast. Glass shattered, and kerosene ignited, lighting the creature ablaze. It was a grotesque sight, but we couldn't afford to hesitate. The distraction allowed us to slip past. We continued toward the entrance, finally catching glimpses of light. Suddenly, we spotted Jed's eyes in the tunnel, popping out from his dirty face. His expression dulled from exhaustion. "Get out!" we yelled, but he just stood there, stupidly, asking if we had found something, completely oblivious, just as we had been minutes ago. We rushed past him and barely got 100 feet away when the darkness with glowing orange eyes lunged, ripping him to shreds. We burst out of the entrance like a bullet, flying straight towards the captain, a serious man who didn't believe in superstitions. But when he saw our faces, he knew something was wrong. "There are creatures! They killed Schmidt!" I shouted. The captain didn't ask questions. He just grabbed his shotgun and ordered the other miners to head for town. He blasted a couple of barrels at the entrance in a desperate attempt to seal it off, but it didn't work. Through the mist and dust, we could see the red eyes staring back at us. He shot at one, and we heard a terrifying growl. They were so dark that, when they lingered in the shadows, their forms became indistinguishable. I got Jimmy onto the wagon bed, then jumped into the driver's seat of the wagon. "Come on, Captain," I urged, and he climbed into the back. We headed toward town, glancing back to see if the creatures would follow. The mine still smoked ominously behind us, and it seemed the creatures were hesitant to leave its shadows.